So, no surprise to anyone, the WNBA playoff ratings, we mentioned this a bit earlier in the week, they're down. We knew they would be down. They're going to continue to go down 50% compared to what it was like with Caitlin Clark for the 2 games that she was in the post.
You know, that feeling when you're watching a game and suddenly the crowd goes wild. That's what happened when Caitlin Clark stepped onto the WNBA court. But here's the kicker when she left. So did 13 million fans. Yeah, you heard that, right? The league went from 17 million viewers to just 4 million without her. And let me tell, A'ja Wilson is not having it. Now, you might be wondering, is this the end of the WNBA as we know it?
WNBA viewership, okay? Game, 7,300 in attendance, okay? The average Angel Reese game is 10,100, 10,200 they come to watch her. You know what the average attendance is when Caitlin Clark plays home or the road?
What?
15,300,
Wow.
okay? 15,300.
Let's talk numbers for a second when Clark plays. We're looking at packed arenas with 15,000 to 18,000 fans without her. It drops to 7,000 to 10,000. That's a big difference, right? It's like Clark has some kind of magic that makes people want to watch basketball.
In about 12 hours, when Caitlin Clark is eliminated from the playoffs. I know the mainstream media wants us to believe that the WNBA is surging in popularity. I know analysts like Monica McDougal at ESPN. They want us to recognize elite layup missers and failed dunkers.
But here's where it gets really interesting. What happens when the star that's holding up the whole show decides to take a break? Is the WNBA ready for that? Or are they putting all their eggs in one Clark-shaped basket? Stick around, because we're about to dive into what this means for the future of women's basketball.
Talking about the individual athletes and the great individual athletes of the past, and he says the difference with Caitlin is she's brought interest to an entire league. And it's not as if the WNBA didn't have incremental interest growth before, it did, but we've seen it be explosive. And we've now seen a trickle down.
Now, you might think one player can't make or break a league. But what if I told you Caitlin Clark's impact is so massive that it's literally changing the game? The numbers are in, and they're about to blow your mind.
To start off the WNBA All-Star voting, Caitlin Clark has received the second most votes for WNBA All-Star behind the number 1 player in the league being A'ja Wilson. So WNBA, all signs are saying Caitlin Clark can help y'all continue to grow this game. So yeah, man. Top 10 players selected right now who have the most votes for the WNBA All-Star. You got A'ja Wilson at 1, Caitlin Clark at 2, Aaliyah Boston at 3.
Clark and Reese will be teammates. That'll be interesting. Clark came in first place in fan voting, by the way, with more than 700,000 votes.
Let's talk about Clark's All-Star voting last year. She was trailing behind A'ja Wilson with less than 100,000 votes. This year, she's leading the pack with over 700,000 votes. That's not just an increase, that's a total game changer.
31 games into the season, the Indiana Fever set an all-time WNBA attendance record. Folks, throughout this entire season, over 500,000 fans have now watched Caitlin Clark play basketball. Over 500,000 fans have watched Caitlin Clark record after record in her rookie season for the WNBA. The Indiana Fever recently reported that 503,000 visitors have attended the team's 31 home and away games this season, including 17,274 people who showed up and watched the Indiana Fever beat the Connecticut Sun.
But it's not just about popularity contests. Clark's bringing in the crowds. Like nobody's business when she plays. We're talking about a packed arena. And over 500,000 fans have watched her break records. That's a huge difference, and it's got everyone wondering what's Clark got that no one else does.
Let that girl cook. She cut in half. Help us. Hey, she like a double-edged sword, Ocho. She cutting ass left and right. Yep. Both sides cutting ass. Wop, 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 wop.
Can handle, she certainly can pass, okay? I look at it from that standpoint and I say mad respect.
Well, for starters, she's got skills that are off the charts. We're talking 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. But it's not just about the numbers. Clark's got this way of playing that just draws you in. She's always looking to set up her teammates, always thinking 2 steps ahead. It's like watching a chess master, but on a basketball court.
I didn't want to have it come off crapping on the rest of the WNBA because it was a good number. But I also, this part of the story is that the Clark number is much larger and it's fallen since Clark is out. So,
and here's the kicker. Clark's not just bringing the die-hard basketball fans. She's got casual viewers tuning into. They're not just getting more viewers, they're getting new viewers. People who might never have watched a game before, suddenly glued to their screens.
Ratings with Clark and the ratings without Clark. We should all get the point. And to me, that almost stirs up more of like a polarization amongst people. And I'm going to use the latest ratings as an example, right? The latest ratings, where we know that the numbers fell a bunch. 2.54 million in Caitlin Clark's final game, which is a huge number, to 929,000, the highest game since the Fever were eliminated.
But here's where it gets tricky when Clark's not playing those viewers. They're not sticking around. We saw it in the playoffs. When Clark's team got knocked out, the viewership took a nosedive. That's a lot of people changing the channel.
This year it's all a little different, and we can thank Caitlin Clark for that.
So what does all this mean for the WNBA? Well, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, Clark's bringing in more fans and more attention than ever before. She's raising the profile of the whole league. But on the other hand, what happens when she's not playing?
But the fact that the ratings from Caitlin Clark's series to these series fell off a cliff, it should surprise no one.
Remember those packed arenas we talked about? Well, they're emptying out faster than you can say. Caitlin Clark, the WNBA is facing a crisis, and it's all because of one player's absence. But here's the real kicker. It's not just about empty seats on ESPN.
On ESPN. But we're getting less viewers now on free television. That's not good no matter how you cut it. Just goes to show that without the number one attraction, this league continues to be a league with their feet stuck in the mud. What are the numbers going to look like next year when some of this hype dies down? When people have 6 months, 7 months, out of sight, out of mind. Oh, the WNBA's back on, okay.
When Clark's team got knocked out of the playoffs, something shocking happened. The WNBA's viewership took a nosedive. We're not talking about a small dip here.
Because she's what everybody wants to see.
Now you might be thinking, but what about all the other stars in the league? Good question. Players like A'ja Wilson and Brianna Stewart are incredible athletes. They've got skills that would make any basketball fan's jaw drop. But here's the thing, even with these superstars on the court, fans just weren't tuning in without Clark.
One of the most highly anticipated playoff series this season between two teams expected to compete for the WNBA championship. The Liberty and the Aces couldn't sell out. According to ESPN, the attendance was 14,015 fans. They didn't even make it to 75% of their arena being full.
This isn't just a problem for the playoffs. The WNBA's whole season is at risk when Clark plays. we're seeing arenas packed with 177,000 to 18,000 fans without her. It drops to 14,000 fans. That's a huge difference, and it's got the league sweating bullets.
I get it, like she's coming in, and from a marketing standpoint, yes, have eyes on her, but don't put all your eggs in one basket. Because at the end of the day, we can't predict the future with her. We just can't.
But it's not just about the numbers. Clark's absence is exposing a bigger issue. The WNBA's has been putting all its eggs in one basket, or should we say one player's jersey. They've been relying on Clark's star power to keep the league afloat, and now that she's not playing, they're struggling to keep fans interested.
If they keep bringing up the ridiculous, idiotic, and tired old notion of racism. Asia Wilson, who bitch, whined, and moaned, and continues to bitch, whine, and moan, that Caitlin Clark is only popular because she's white, couldn't be more far off.
This dependence on Clark has even sparked some controversy. Some commentators are debating why she's so popular. Is it just her skills on the court, or is there something else at play? These discussions have gotten pretty heated with some, even bringing race into the equation. The WNBA is in a tough spot. They've got a league full of talented players, but they're struggling to market them effectively. It's like they've forgotten how to showcase their team dynamics and the diversity of their talent pool. Instead, they've been riding the Caitlin Clark wave, and now they're at risk of wiping out.
Probably time to start pushing the other, like the girl that have been carrying this league for the last four or 5 years, push them to the forefront as well, like a Rike.
So what's next for the WNBA? They've got some serious thinking to do. They need to figure out new stars to keep fans engaged when their biggest star isn't on the court. Because right now, it looks like without Clark, the league's future is hanging by a thread.
Caitlin Clark's final WNBA game this season did 2.5 million viewers on ESPN on a Wednesday and peaked with 3.4 million viewers on a Wednesday. Now the Lynx vs. Mercury game following behind it did 1.2 million viewers on a Wednesday with 2.1 peak viewership on a Wednesday. And the Tuesday games, the Storm Aces, 990,000. Ooh.
Hold on to your jerseys, because the WNBA's roller coaster ride isn't over yet with Caitlin Clark benching herself for 200 plus days. The league staring down a fan exodus. But here's the million-dollar question: is this the end of the WNBA, or the wake-up call it desperately needs?
In comparison to Caitlin Clark. Just like in the 90s, the NBA games that did not have Michael Jordan playing tanked compared to Michael Jordan games.
Let's talk about the bombshell. Clark just dropped she's taken a break for over 200 days. That's more than half a year without the league's biggest star. Can you imagine the NBA without me? Jordan for that long. It's not just a gap in the schedule. It's a potential black hole for the WNBA's future.
So the WNBA has been breaking records all year. They've been breaking records all year, and obviously, Caitlin Clark is breaking the records. And it's funny because a lot of people are going to be talking about how the Caitlin Clark, like how she had like 2.5 million people watching her game, and then as soon as her game like doesn't happen, as soon as she's out, they tank in viewership.
Think about it. We've already seen what happens when Clark's not on the court. Viewership drops like a stone. That's not a small dip. That's a cliff dive. And now, with Clark out for an extended period, the WNBA is facing a crisis.
We don't know how much longer Asia Wilson's gonna be in the league. We don't know how much longer Brianna Stewart or anybody. But the good thing about it, there's new talent coming in. You know, you got Juju coming in a couple of years, Paige is coming in next year. So I mean, there's talent that's coming in. So it's just like you just can't, because who's to say they might come in and they might be more of an impact than her. So I mean, like, it's just, I feel like you should just keep it on a balanced level because you just can't predict the future with this situation.
But here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't just about losing a star player for a few months. It's about the WNBA's entire strategy. They've been riding the Caitlin Clark wave, and now that wave is about to crash. What are they going to do? Now the league's got some serious soul-searching to do. They need to figure out how to keep fans engaged when their golden goose isn't laying eggs. It's not just about finding another star. It's about changing their whole approach.
Agumli Wale for the Dallas Wings, averaging 28 points a game, right? Nakisha Collier, she's averaging 28 and 15 rebounds. We don't hear about any of these people when we market the league. And I say, Marv, you don't build a league off of one player, because right now, even though these teams initially, it was sold out these arenas to see Caitlin, the product on the court doesn't match up with the hype that's outside right now. That means she's not going to get better, but it's not matching up. I think the league is missing a tremendous opportunity to promote some of these other stars. Marv, what is your opinion?
You might be thinking, but what about all the other talented players? And you're right. The WNBA is full of incredible athletes, but for some reason they're not drawing in the crowds. Like Clark does. Is it a marketing problem? A lack of connection with fans? Whatever it is, the WNBA needs to solve it fast.
The NBA, the WNBA, and women's basketball in general, they're going to have to make a decision about how they're going to move their brand going forward. Because I do think we're getting to the point where, all right, the popularity, like the odds are here. How do we start to tailor the game towards who we think the next star is going to be? Or do we leave it the same and just trust what we've done to this point and let that continue to grow at a natural, organic?
The playoffs are coming up, and that's usually when leagues shine. But without Clark, the WNB are risking losing all the momentum they've built. They're at a crossroads. Now, do they double down on finding the next Caitlin Clark? Or do they try to build a lead that's not dependent on any one player?
But it has to match up. Like, obviously, you have to be talented. You have to actually have something of substance for us to push. But that's clearly already there. That's already existed in the past 3-4 seasons. You just have not decided that we're going to truly invest in making this the next big thing. But they can absolutely push the button and allow for the floodgates to open in terms of marketing, in terms of commercials, in terms of however you see fit. Like, you can make whoever you want to make the it person. I think this is the right time to do it when you already have one that's already gaining that attention organically in Caitlin Clark. You already have that.
It's not just about survival. It's about growth. The WNBA's got a chance here to really shake things up. They could use this Clark-shaped hole as a chance to showcase their other stars, to build team rivalries, to create storylines that keep fans hooked, even when the biggest names aren't playing.
I mean, Caitlin, I just say put more marketing dollars and push behind some of the great players in the WNBA so that you can sustain this, and all of the focus, if you're saying Caitlin, and that's Caitlin game is not where you thought it was going to be, you still have all these great players that you can push more. That's what I say.
But let's be real. It's not going to be easy. The WNBA has been struggling for years to build a solid fan base. Clark was like a shot of adrenaline for the league. Now, they've got to figure out how to keep that energy going without her.
Tiger Woods, that's a great comparison. It really is. It really is. I think, look, I expected the ratings to plummet, but the attendance part, I think, is the most eye-opening, because that's also tied, again, to gate revenue. The attendance fell off a cliff. There you go. I mean, seriously.
So what's the big takeaway from all this Caitlin Clark drama? Well, it's clear the WNBA has been riding high on Clark's talent, but now they're facing a serious reality check with Clark. Taking a long break, the league's in hot water. they've lost millions of viewers. And those empty seats are getting pretty hard to ignore.
Like, this is not about, I think everyone's in their feelings and they don't understand no matter what your feelings is moving no matter what. Facts. Right? So either you gonna follow the train so you can get fed too, or you're just gonna be left. That's how this actually works. So now, if you're a smart businesswoman, fuck your skills. Because if your skills is not being seen, it's gonna be undervalued, right? So you need to now position yourself to be the one that's making the money. So the girls who are the best in this league, right? So when you're talking about Asia.
But here's the thing, this could be the wake-up call the WNBA needs. They can't just rely on one superstar to keep the whole league afloat. That's a recipe for disaster. They've got to figure out how to showcase all their talent. Not just one player. People are so caught up trying to prove that there is one star that is bringing all of this growth. The reality is, by focusing on one star, you're missing the beautiful constellation of stars, and you listed some of them. So what would you do if you were running the WNBA right now? Because whatever happens next, it's going to change. Women's basketball forever, the clock's ticking, and the league's future hangs in the balance.